Okay, more on the scope here in the U800 IC here that tends to overheat. What I've gone and done is I had a large heatsink. I think this was on a video card chip, modern day, and I've cut a piece about the size of the chip. I've saved the retainers so I can use the two nuts. There's a nut here and here, a stud with a nut to clasp it down with, and I also have some of this heatsink pad that's used in modern day equipment. It's this was the first heatsink I was going to go with initially, but by people telling me that this chip gets so hot that they can't touch it, led me to believe that I should take more drastic measures. I still have to cut these fins down a little so they will clear the case when it's put back together, so I'm going to trim that next. But what I've done ahead is I've gone and etched these so I can just break this off and get it to fit on the chip and keep the retainers something on this idea right here. And what I'll do is I'll trim those down next. Okay, a third and final attempt of trying to get this tape and substrate off so it can be applied to the heatsink. This is our last little piece of heatsink tape we have here, so this one has to count. Like I say, this must be an old piece or something, because it's really hard to separate. But okay, I have enough on there, and I have this heatsink dry fitted enough so I should simply snap it on, and it covers the face of the chip, the top of the chip, which we're trying to cool here. And then I'm going to just tighten it down. Without overdoing it. I don't want it to vibrate off. I could put a little bit of Loctite on there, but there we have the heatsink mounted to U801, hopefully in prevention of overheating down the road, and give this scope a little more life. So now we can get on to putting the rest of the power supply back together with the capacitors that were purchased, so we can finish this piece of test equipment up. Thanks for watching. Okay, after installation of the heatsink, I'm just verifying the scope as best I can before I go and reassemble the power supply. So I just have it on the test point. And it's been running a while, but I don't want to run it too long, as I don't want to overheat any components. What I can show is that the chip here is not, it doesn't appear to be getting, well, it's warm, see, but it's not hot to the touch or anything like that. So I think we're gonna go with the addition of that heatsink right there. We'll assume all channels are working. I've tested 2 of them. I can go on and check the others. And next we'll get into the power supply, replace the caps, so we can put the case back on this and get started on some other projects around here. So once again, stay tuned and thanks for watching. Okay, continuing on with the scope project here, I've gone ahead and made my new capacitors. Some heat shrink tubing on here, so now they'll fit in the power supply holder, which then in turn will be covered and will hold on this model, it has a turbine fan that mounts horizontally in there. So we'll get to that next. Okay, still another update here as the sun begins to set on another day. Here is the combination power supply, well, the two-piece power supply board, and the gentleman online here claims to say that it's a pleasure to work on. Well, I wouldn't quite call it a pleasure to work on. It's there are some things I can tell you about it though that might save me in the future. But in hopes I'm never in here again. There are the new capacitors in the shell where they belong. The polarity was checked and checked again, and then checked again. This is the motor for the blower here that's installed, and that differs from the model in this gentleman's is the B model. This must be the original run. The point I want to make on this is these boards are sandwiched together with a kind of a shield plane in between here, and what you have to do to reconnect the two boards together are these slide-in connectors here. I'll try to show you them. You pull them up. There's about 4 of them. There's one here, here, and there's 2 more here and here. You have to pull them up, then only when the two boards are together you slide them in and hopefully make contact to all the pins inside. I will do that off camera to make sure I do that properly, but all these pins have to slide back into the corresponding pins on the other side here. So we'll get to that. These are the capacitors, it looks like, that were changed before. All these ones right here that are similar to the ones he replaced. I had already done that to no avail initially. The capacitors that we took out, these are the ones we substituted in to get the unit working. These are the 2 originals, although they weren't bad. These are the ones I had trouble finding and fitting in. These were 290 at 200, and I've gone ahead and put in a new 390 at 200. So I went up 100 microfarad, but that should be okay. Again, here's the capacitors that were changed on the main board, or one of the boards I should say. And that was outlined, that was prior to me knowing. This gentleman had a problem with his blowing fuses, so he changed a couple of these line caps right here, circled in red, and he had a resistor over there that he replaced, but I didn't have a problem blowing fuses, so I'm not touching any of that right now. These are the ones he's referring to right here, but I'm not going to go that route. So stay tuned, we'll do one more check with the shields and fan and everything in place, hopefully. Okay, we'll do one last look inside before we put the shields on. Again, here's the power supply, etc., all put back in properly. Plastic shields in place. And again, this is the board that originally went bad on this, was the processor board here that controls the digital functions of this scope. This early digital stuff can be really, really tricky. That's the microprocessor there, and these are actually the programming ROMs, which each individual chip has a portion of the program to run this scope stored in it. And those can become corrupt by power surges and whatnot. It's similar to what you do with your phones now, flashing them and jailbreaking them and whatnot. Those are the ROM chips that hold the programming to run the scope. So we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the covers on and fire it up and see that it works properly. Okay, this will be the Tektronix 2465 final. It's all back in the cabinet. Must be because it's a portable scope. Everything is, I would say, I didn't have a pleasure working on. If you don't get every cover and shield back exactly as it was, it will not fit back together. It's that tight. In any event, we're about to see if indeed it works when it's put all back together. So here goes. These are the new capacitors. Installed. I do have signal. I'll put it on the test point here and see how it looks. It's channel 1. We'll try channel 2. We'll try channel 3. I don't think channel 3 adjusts or something. I don't understand that. Or how you... oh, position for channel 3 is over here. Okay. And these channels I've never used. And channel number 4 also appears functional. So that'll be a wrap for the Tektronix 2465 Putback. It was originally found non-working, been owned since about 1997 or 8, and after several moves it had been located in damp locations, which took out the microprocessor. I had first tried the crystal. This was in 2007. That's what the invoices say. And the CPU chip would get hot. That's why I had an idea it may be the CPU. I ordered a second board for it after finding one, and it did not come with the CPU as mentioned in the previous posts. And so we sourced the CPU from England, used the board that was second-hand, as I did not want to risk the CPU in the original board, as that's what caused it to go, who knows. And here's where we are, and we put the heatsink on the U800. So this should be a wrap for the Tektronix 2465 oscilloscope video. Thanks for watching, and now we can get on to some interesting things, like radios.